country is still in shock trying to make sense of Saturday's insanity in Tucson, where Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords is in critical condition after 22-year-old Jared Loughner opened fire at her public appearance, killing 6 people, including a 9-year-old young lady called Christina Taylor Greene, and federal judge John M. Roll. And, you know, there's a lot being said because, you know, there's so many... we become so vitriolic. We talk about this on the show so often that it's sort of, is this what happens because we've become so vitriolic that, you know, people who are unstable are hearing things saying, go and get these people? Because this woman, this congresswoman, she was one of 9 of the Congress people who, particularly Democrats, who had been targeted by several different organizations. I mean, it's just crazy.
Because she voted, in part because she voted for health care.
Yeah.
Right. There was, and you remember in the press as of late, there's been a ton of criticism over the, was it Facebook page of Sarah Palin, when she had the crosshairs over different districts, and she said something like, don't something reload or whatever.
That's a different thing. That she had this was an ad that she had with the crosshairs about who you should vote for or not. But she also, what you're talking about is she tweeted at one point, conservatives and so on. She said, don't retreat, instead reload. I'm feeling bad for Sarah Palin because I don't think that's what she should have said, and certainly crosshairs are very scary. This is a deranged young man. This is a Timothy McVeigh. Whether this happened because there is a violence, you know, too much commentary, too much violence, as you say, we've talked about. Sometimes we do it here, we get so angry. Whether that really spurred him on or whether he's just a very sick person, we don't know, and we don't know what his motives are. And we can hope that all the vitriol calms down. But to blame Sarah Palin, as some are doing, I think is very unfair to her. She issued a statement offering her condolences and hasn't said more. But I don't think this is the time now to start finding, you should excuse me, other targets to blame.
It seemed to be the first target, though. I mean, it, you know, was her, right? I mean, they seem to say, okay, this is the direct link.
If you look at that map with the crosshairs, Giffords' name was on there.
Yeah.
And she was, I just want to point out, she was, Sarah Palin was one of several people who put crosshairs on this young lady.
So, you know.
And all of which, I mean, we talked about it here on the show. I remember saying that it seemed extreme and almost inexcusable that crosshairs would be put over everybody. And because you put a crosshair over someone or a district, then does that, in fact, if you were not the person behind the gun, are you then to blame? I mean, just the morning of this shooting, hours before, the New York Post had this as its cover. Crosshairs saying, stop him, over Peyton Manning's face. Now, are they then to blame if, God forbid, anything were to happen to Peyton Manning?
God forbid, if anything were to happen to Peyton Manning, we'd be holding this up going, why would you foolishly do something like this? Why would you, when you put it, I'm saying there were many people in addition to Sarah Palin, but you got to say, your words are powerful.
Yes, we
just because we have free speech and just because we can say certain things does not mean that we should. There are consequences that come, and so I don't know, but all those people who did do the crosshairs and had Giffords' name down there, you got to go to bed at night and go, did I have something to do with this?
And in fact, she took it down off of her Facebook page, which means that obviously she thought either out of respect for the family or maybe in hindsight it was something that could indeed incite someone who may not be a great man to do something.
She said, did you hear the statement that she made in March on MSNBC? I'll just read it to you. We're in Sarah Palin's targeted list, but the thing is, the way that she has depicted has the crosshairs of a gun sight over our district. When people do that, they've got to realize there are consequences. But now, will this... I mean, this violent act of one, the Congresswoman, that was her statement.
Right.
And by the way, we are praying for her and the other victims, and the doctors say they are cautiously optimistic. But after all of this, if there's any good that comes, will we be different? Will we have less vitriol? The way to get attention and ratings has been the more, the louder, the busier, the nastier. Do you think this is going to make a difference?
I do believe it's going to make a difference, because I think more and more people are saying, you know what? we can disagree. I mean, that's the great thing. We can get very animated on this show, but it is never personal,
right?
And it is never puts you in danger.
Never.
It never. We don't endanger people, and we've had this discussion with several of our guests where we've had to say your words mean something because you're on television. People are listening, and just be aware of it. Just be aware that there. Pardon me. There are crazy folks out there, folks who will think that you are talking to them and telling them what to do. And if you're seeing it on a commercial, which is what was also going on in Arizona, I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts.
What I was also going to say, and I think a lot of people are jumping on Sarah Palin because this is a woman who's out there who there's speculation that she might run for office as opposed to these other people, and we're going, was that a bad lack of with the lack of judgment that she showed? So I think people are getting on her.
But isn't it ironic? They're saying don't be so hateful, don't be so quick to judge, don't be so quick to use things for political gain. Yet they're still using this as an opportunity to then, in fact, come back and put blame on her. And whether or not she did it, and we all said it was wrong for her to use the crosshairs. We all did, including me. But I don't think that it's actually changing, Whoopi. I think it's actually getting worse because people are using it.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the difference then and now is people, all our viewing folks, have now watched this thing happen. They have watched the life of this 9-year-old little girl who had nothing but future in front of her. And I think somehow it has clicked in people's minds that they may be connected. Barbara, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Just to make it very much in the present, we have a new Congress, and there has been all of this, will they get along, all of this anger, can they talk, so on, in this kind of a voice. And maybe, if there's any good that comes out of this, maybe even something, not maybe even, something as important to us as the new Congress. Maybe there will be a different way of talking. Maybe there will be a different way of cooperating. If so, and if we can all keep the arguments down, and we just have to pray for the Congresswoman and the other people, then maybe there is some good that came out of this horrendous act.
We keep our fingers crossed.